Today we are going to learn about virtualization and how virtualization actually helps in cloud services. Okay, so what does virtualization actually mean? So in the image you can see there is a server. Okay, there is a server. Okay, I will use this blue one. There is a server, and the server is getting broken down into small servers. Okay, as you can see in the image, the server is getting broken down into small servers, and it is getting broken down into small servers, okay, by using a software called hypervisor. So that is said to be a, sorry, the spelling is quite, sorry, the handwriting is quite bad, but if we break down, so in summary, if we break down a big server into small servers, okay, using a software called hypervisor, then that is said to be as virtualization. Okay, now we have to know the concept of cloud services. Okay, so for example, my computer does not have storage. Okay, what I will do, I will go to the Google Drive and I will use some of the storage of the Google Drive. That is one example of cloud service. For example, I will not build a storage. Okay, I will not own storage, I will just use the Google Drive. I will use the software from the internet. Okay, that is one of the example. I will use some of the, I for streaming videos, or I will use Netflix. That is from the internet. That is an example of cloud service. Okay, so these are some of the examples of cloud services. Okay, so if we use the cloud services from the internet, okay, for anything like storage, for anything like for anything like storage, for anything like running software which you do not own, then that is simply said to be as cloud service. So how does virtualization actually help in cloud services? And so for example, this is our server. Okay, so now this is the Google Drive server. So if the demand or the of the law or the users which are using the Google Drive actually increases too much, okay, so the demand gets increased. So what does virtualization actually does is, according to the need of the demand, it increases the virtual machines. Okay, so according to the need of the demand, it increases the virtual machines, and as it increases the virtual machines, so there will not be server crash and we will not be facing too much loss. Okay, so another thing is security. Okay, so if we are talking about security, what I want to say is, like, for example, this is our virtual machine, big server. Okay, it is getting broken into virtual machines. Okay, so in the virtual machines, so as someone who is using Google Drive, we are using Google Drive, and we are using Google Drive, and as we can see that in Google Drive we can uh, we can see some of the information there, because we are storing some of the information there. But but what will happen is, like, there might be some of the other users who can access the information too, because we are not silly enough to know that we are only using Google Drive. Okay, there are many people who are using, but what does virtualization hypervisor ensures it? Hypervisor ensures that the drive which we are using, or the info or our information does not get shared to other. Okay, so while we are using cloud services, it the hypervisor ensures that our the security of our information or data. Okay, so the next one is disaster recovery. Okay, so for example, this is our main server. Okay, and in our main server we have different virtual machines. Okay, so what does server actually go through it? It goes through a disaster. Okay, so as it goes through a disaster, then what will happen is, like, the virtual machines will also be stopped working. Okay, but at that time, the many of the information could get lost. Okay, so what does virtualization actually does is, it transfers the virtual machine from this main server or this server to another server. Okay, and even though the server gets burned or something like that, but we will not know about the disaster which actually happened, and we will be using our cloud service smoothly. Okay, so that is also, so as we do that, okay, so as we do disaster recover, as we do that, we come to the next point, it saves money. Okay, so as you know that server, in order to run a server, we need simply different RAM, cooling fan. Okay, so if virtualization was not there, so for example, I want to give you an example. If we are using 10 servers, we are using currently we are using if we are currently using 10 apps, and we are using 10 servers. Okay, but if we have virtualization, This is without virtualization. We will be using 10 apps under 3 servers. Okay, so what trying to say is like we could be able to use 10 apps under 3 servers, so it is saving our some kind of money. Okay, and for example, if we have 10, in order to run 10 apps we have 10 server. Okay, we have to, our server cannot be run cheaply. Okay, we have to give price from the cooling fan, CPU, and so on. Okay, so that will be quite costly for us. But if we will use, in comparison to 10 server, if we will use 3 server, then that will not be quite expensive to us. Okay, so these are some of the relationship between virtualization and cloud services and how it is useful. Okay, so